So being Emily features the voice of the young girl, as which is a very strong element in your previous two books. What attracts you to the voice of young narrators?
The more I think about it, the more I think that, well, I don't actually decide or I'm drawn to things, it's that they seem to be drawn to me. It just almost seems to be how it kind of happens. And I've always found the voice of a young, sometimes, you know, round about the age of 12 is a good one. I think it's probably because it's quite a transitional age. People of that age are very aware and knowing, but they're kind of on the verge of a new part of their life. But they're also still quite, they've still got the childlike part of themselves intact. So I think that makes them very interesting to write about. Being Emily starts off with the voice of, in fact she's not called Emily, I should say that first of all, she's not called Emily. The girl in the story is called Fiona. But there's reasons why the story is called Being Emily. But at the beginning of the story, we have Fiona aged 12 and her family and so on. And there's a reasonably short set, a few chapters set at that point, and then it moves on a few years till she's in her last year at secondary school. And we take her on from there, round about the sort of later teenage stage of her life, and most of the book is written from that point of view, in fact. But starting off there, and I think the thing is that when you start with a character when they're wee, it's kind of, you know them. To start with a child character, even if they become older, or if you move on, because there's a gap in which things have happened, but most of the book deals with her slightly older, but because we see her at the beginning, I think that kind of roots you with her.
Interracial relationships feature both in Buddha and in Being Emily. Is that intentional, accidental, or is that a theme that you enjoy writing about?
To me it's just, I mean, if you're writing kind of contemporary novels, it's in Glasgow, in any city, in most places in Britain, I mean, it's just part of what things are. It's not a big deal or an issue or anything like that, as far as I'm concerned. It's just how things are, you know. That's, you know, people are of different races, religions, nationalities, or whatever, but usually they're Scottish, you know, because so many people are Scottish, but have family heritages from different. In fact, I think probably most of us do. You know, if you go back far enough, it's just, you know, whether it be Irish or whether it be from Pakistan or whether it be from Poland or whether it be from Africa or whatever. And I think it's great, and it's just part of how things are. I think it would, to write a contemporary novel without having that in would probably just seem odd to me, because it's just how life is, really.
How has the process of writing Being Emily differed from that of Buddha? Has it been the same? Has it been wildly different?
In some ways, kind of similar actually, because I started off with you know, what I thought might be a short story of her and her family, and really again just the family being quite, you know, alive to me, and then it sort of stopped, and at that point I was thinking that I was going to take it on at the age that she round about 12 and this, but somehow there was nothing coming out of that. And when I was just sitting writing, I suddenly had this bit from a much older stage, and I realised that was where I needed to go into, and at that point I didn't know whether I was going to write that bit and then go back in between, but somehow or other the story just took me along, and I realised again at another point, and people, it sounds really daft, I mean it does sound daft, it sounds like, what are you talking about, you didn't know you were going to write this, but it was, I'm writing this about her when she's about 6 years at school, and this is happening, that's happening, and then all of a sudden at this moment I suddenly think, I know what happened in between, I know what it was that happened, and it's there. I don't know where it comes from, but I just go with it. So to some extent it was similar in that way, and also similar in that then the conscious decisions have to be made. Now for Being Emily, one of the conscious decisions I had to make early on was I going to keep it all in Fiona's voice? because there was another character that I thought that I would write from the perspective of. And part of me was wanting to not do the same thing again. So I think I would quite like to just keep going with her. Because that was what happened with Buddha Dad. I wrote from the different voices. And then but at certain points I also had some other bits in which were kind of diaries and things like that from the other character. And in the end they all got cut out, just about completely cut out. So it does end up really from her perspective. The other decision I had to make, again, dealing with language, was I wanted to change, and this was to some extent conscious, although it arises out of the character. The bit at the beginning, when she's about 12, is quite a very strong Glasgow Scots voice, very sort of coherent. And I could have just kept the same voice for the rest of it, but I wanted to, again, to differentiate between that bit and the bit, the second bit, but still keeping it Scottish, because I wanted to show an older voice. I also wanted to show somebody who's quite, the thing is, she's quite bookish. She likes, without giving, they won't give anything away at all to say the reason it's called Being Emily is because at the beginning of the story she's quite obsessed with the works of Emily Bronte, and she's quite interested in books and writing and so on, and art and everything. So she's read a lot. She's read a lot of 19th century stuff, so that kind of affects it. But equally, it still had to stay Glasgow. So I had to find a way of doing that. And I've used certain things different between the beginning and that one to make it slightly different. But also, I think there's quite a lot of movement of the voice. The voice is not standardised or consistent in the second part, because at certain times she'll become more broad because of the context of where she is with her family. Other times she becomes less so. And that was a big challenge, because that was actually quite hard to do. And you're doing it thinking, is this going to be confusing? Or will I spend all this time doing it and nobody will even notice that I've done it? Will it work? So that was an interesting process.
Do you share your work with other writers whilst you're writing? Talked about that a little.
No, I don't. I think again, it's very much a unconscious process. It's happening, and there's almost a part of me that thinks I don't know myself what I'm doing here. I've no idea. And actually, my first draft is phenomenally messy and not, tidied up. I don't sit and go back and check my spelling, even my own Scots spelling, as I'm doing it. I just do one day. I just read enough of the previous days just to make sure I know where I am. Get going, do it. So it would be kind of pointless, I think, to show anybody that. But even when I get to a stage where I'm polishing and doing all the stuff, I don't talk about it. I don't say what it's about. I don't, to anyone, nobody. I just work on it. And then it's only when it gets to, I think I know that somebody needs to see it when it gets to a point where I don't think I can do any more. And I need to know, is this rubbish? Is this okay, but it needs quite a lot of work? Or is it getting to the point where you might be able to show it to the publisher or whatever? And that would be the point where I would let somebody else see it. This very advanced stage, really.